Imagine a world where firebending existed since the beginning. How would humanity have turned out, and what would modern day society look like? We're going to start off with just talking about how we think humans would have, functioned as a society in the beginning, like as cavemen and whatnot. So anybody have any big ideas or want to start us off?
I think our population would be like a lot more, and I think our technology would probably be more advanced, especially like back in the day, cavemen. If they had the power to firebend, I'm just thinking about how they'll be able to like find cures faster and live longer because they had to figure out how to start a fire. But if you had the natural born talent of like already starting it, then it's like 100% life is easier at that point since fire is one of like the survival like things that you need.
Yeah, because it makes it a lot easier to cook, and it also makes it a lot easier to, I don't know much about medical stuff, but cauterize burns and stuff, or like bacteria and whatnot.
And if you guys have ever played like, it's kind of like Sims. It's like villagers or whatever. The first thing you have to do is build, like, find a way to build a fire so that your people survive.
Yeah.
So I think 100%
I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of the opposite. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I kind of feel like if we had fire, especially during our caveman time, I feel like I don't know how we will survive. I just feel like, because again, at the end of the day, unless our bodies can adapt from that fire, I just see people attacking each other with it.
That's exactly.
Like, they'll just really destroy each other.
I had this exact same mindset where it's like, okay, there are a lot of like positive possibilities, but no, there's a reason why the Fire Nation was the one that tried to overtake the entire world. I think that the fact that you have the only bending that you don't really need anything else. You have it with you all the time, no matter what, except for air, I guess. That's always everywhere. But the firebending, it's kind of like it's most easily used with like anger and rage and all of that stuff. I feel like if that was in humanity from the beginning, then it would have been difficult. It's almost like giving early human beings the atomic bomb. Like without them.
Yeah, I agree.
That's true. It's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
But as you said, there is a reason why they took over, and they're strong, they're powerful, and I think that if that happened back in the day, they would be like, it would be even stronger. Because I feel like with firebending, you have the natural resistance also to like fire, as opposed to like you had nothing.
I mean, but see, I think another reason why they're able to take over is because they're also dealing with different elements. Like, if it was just the Fire Nation alone, I don't know how far would they progress. Like, if it was just everyone.
Yeah, but the thing is, I feel like there's two mistakes in what you guys are saying. And the first one is, you're saying how, like, the Fire Nation, there's a reason why they were the ones who attacked. But we're only looking at a period of time where they were the main aggressors. If we're talking about like Kyoshi's time, where Chin the Conqueror was trying to take over the world, that's an earthbender right there. So I do feel like I'm pretty sure there's been other benders that are aggressive as well, trying to like conquer and whatnot.
I'm not necessarily, or at least what I'm saying, because I mean I know OC made his opinion on that. I don't think necessarily that you can't have any other bender who will try to, like, I mean, we obviously see in the show, any bender, you give them enough power, they'll do something. I just think that fire bending, I mean, there's a reason why they were successful at it. I mean,
yeah.
So that's just my thing with that. And I just feel as far as the world being with fire, I just feel that the way we act and the way we are, like, partially, and this is just maybe you can say it's a jaded belief that I have, but I feel like a lot of reason why human beings are even working together is because we feel like we can survive. It's easiest for us to survive. And I feel like with fire, I just feel like we're more likely to, like, I mean, maybe we can come up with a possibility like that where we believe we can survive with it, but I just feel like we're more likely to hurt each other more because it's just a double-edged sword. And unless we can survive fire and like we can adapt to it, I just don't see it like. I just feel like people are gonna accidentally kill it. It's just more death.
But that's the thing. Like, the number two thing I was gonna mention is you guys said like fire. A lot of it has to do with rage and whatnot, but like if we're talking like the Sun Warriors, then we're talking about like a very old culture that was very. I don't know if they were peaceful, but they seem to have existed for a long time on their own,
Right.
and not hurt each other. And
well, let's I mean, let's say so. Like, I think it's you have to get past the initial, like that initial period of time where it's like cavemen times, basically, and there's not a designated, like, there's no training on how to use firebend. Like, cavemen aren't training each other on how to properly or effectively use firebend. Like, if it's an element that is most easily accessed through like heightened emotions of anger and rage, I don't think that I don't think I'm like where Truth was. I feel like that would basically just be giving these people a major weapon that they can use against each other, which, unless they're like able to have a proper defense against it, it's probably not going to turn out very well.
I mean, the only possibility I could see is that obviously you will have a bunch of people who will destroy each other, and then you have these peaceful people who maybe would migrate and survive. But I just feel like it's still going to be like a minority versus the majority, because I just feel like once you get into that whole, like, yeah, again, the war and destructiveness of fire, because even if, like, it doesn't have to be necessarily like someone trying to attack. It could be an accident. It could be like you're just learning fire and all suddenly like, oops, and then someone can die from that.
That's true.
I just think that moment is just going to take, if anything, we'll have like few humans who will survive. Like the smartest humans, whatever, would just, try to get away from like if there's a top 10% of firebenders, they'll get away from the 90%, because the 90% would just kill each other. So that's just how I feel about that.
Okay, to your point, Chuku, I agree somewhat, but at the same time, it's sort of like if you look at history by itself, like there's already so much war. There's already so much like people trying to kill each other, or people successfully killing each other and creating great empires and essentially oppressing others. And it's basically exactly what you're saying right now. So I feel like there's almost no difference, because like, okay, maybe it'll be harsher. Like the death tolls will increase, and maybe there'll be more aggressors, more oppressors and whatnot. But
yeah, I mean,
it sounds similar.
I'll think of it this way, where like in our own normal history, it was harder, or I feel like it's easier today to kill people than it was back then. And I feel like if you were to give, like back when the population was much smaller than 7 billion, like back when you had just these small communities, if you were to give like something like machine guns to those people, the possibility of war would be far more devastating than it would be today, because like today we simply have way more people, and so humanity is able to recover more effectively today than previously. And I like
that's true.
The whole thing of how the Mongols were able to take over so much, and like Genghis Khan basically went through that whole region, and the amount of people that he killed and took over and all that stuff, like that kind of thing. Things like Alexander the Great basically taking over the entire world that he knew about, like those kind of things were, I feel like if you were to give them the access to deadly weapons that we have today, it would have been even more devastating.
Well, I guess on an opposite point of view, if you were to think about it, if people had firebending, then they would have the ability to stand up for themselves. I mean, I think one of the main reasons why there are conquerors was because they conquered people who were most of the time defenseless,
That's a good point. Yeah.
That is a very good point.
So this gives them, and if it's a community, a community of firebenders that are standing up against a conqueror, it's a lot harder to, conquer them versus people who are defenseless.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, about those conquerors, about like oppression and whatnot, it's because people with power are oppressing people with no power. But if everyone had the ability to firebend, then that makes it a lot harder to
exactly. And
oppress.
society would be ran completely different. You know, maybe they'll be able to find a way to stop someone from firebending, to limit their power, or you know, maybe we'd be able to have like rules. Yeah. Maybe if back in the day we had firebending, we'd have rules that would police benders. And I'm sure there's going to be people who were born without power or born with the power. So there's going to be that type of societal like hierarchy. And usually the ones with no power are the poorest, or maybe they'll climb above by, you know, some other opportunity.
I think for the sake of argument, let's say everyone has firebending, but obviously not everyone has firebending at the same level.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. Well, even then, I think my biggest, I guess my why I'm very skeptic about this whole thing is just that let's just ignore this whole thing about like people trying to kill each other in terms of like forcibly kill each other. Assuming that we are still based off our like rules of human life, it's like, what about when we kill nature? Like, what if we cause global warming faster?
That's what I was going to say,
like
actually.
All these side effects that can happen through fire bending. Like, it's just like, at the end of the day, I just don't feel like, before we even get to the smart where we realize, okay, this is screwed up, I don't feel like we would even develop a smart way to fix the problems that we cause from the past from fire bending. So that's just why I don't. I mean, is it possible? Yes, there could be a possibility where, like I said, the 10%, whatever, they got their brain, they figured out some solution. Maybe they fly to a different planet that they can survive because we're firebenders, and then they made new rules that would not go to the old Earth. That's a possibility, but I just feel like it's just very unlikely because of the way our brains were mature, and then like what damage we could have done to the Earth because of the firebending. So that's the reason why I'm a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the whole like climate change thing. It would have accelerated climate change by a lot because
would it have
fires going off everywhere. Yeah, because fire produces
but it's natural. It's like natural fire versus like, you know, burning gasoline too and fossil fuels.
Yeah, but fire still releases
carbon emissions.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So if it's just produced by a human being like constantly, I'm like, that's definitely gonna be, that's like everyone using like cars every day basically.
Yes, and even worse.
I'm pretty sure they'd still be fine even if like it was, you know, this year, because climate change, it's not gonna like wipe out everyone. It's just gonna like terraform the earth to the point where there's a lot of flooding and whatnot.
That's true. Have you guys watched that one anime? It's called like Fire Force. It's pretty much about people who. It's like an anime about like firebending, pretty much.
Interesting.
So that would be kind of cool if it was like that type of different levels of firebending.
Okay.
Haven't seen it, so.
Okay, well, I highly recommend it.
Okay, sure. Let's just say for the sake of the argument that we were able to survive and we had the right tools to make us live. I am curious what the world would be like if we were able, like how the world society would look like if we were able to survive this. And
Sure. Well, before we head to more of a modern time, I also wanted to discuss other elements of life back then, other than war and violence. Like. How do you guys think it would look? Like, for instance, obviously hunting would be a lot easier.
Definitely.
I think agriculture would also be easier because they could clear fields easier as well as manage other things. I don't know much about it, but I feel like it just gives them an edge over having.
Yeah, I think you would probably speed through to the Iron Age, like past the Bronze Age pretty quickly. And all of that stuff, if they're able to just, you know, smelt rocks with their bare hands.
I think it'd be easier for them to experiment with things because people would probably, like kids, would be like bored, or adults, they'd be like, what would happen if I burned sand, you know, or something.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
I think we'll
also.
was gonna say, I think we could have our first astronauts because people will be like, "What could we do? How far can I fly up in the air?"
Yeah. We might not even have cars. People would just be flying.
That's true. Like everyone can be their own air balloon.
Oh God.
So I guess technology could be advanced or less advanced. It could take a step back or a step forward.
I think definitely forward, for sure. But well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it depends on what you see as forward, right? Because like if they never developed cars, then it would definitely be a different version of a car, right?
Yeah.
Probably a version where they can make it move with firebending, or
For sure.
Yeah. Or more of like an efficient way where you don't feel tired or burnt out or something like that.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Well, I mean, that's kind of getting more into modern, but
I mean, we can get into modern. It seems like what happens in the past is that it just becomes extremely modern fast. So
yeah,
that's what it seems like. Which
they don't even need horses.
Electrical cars, if you are able to teach enough people lightning bending, and then they basically can just power their cars through electricity.
That's interesting.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
That would be easier than like having to constantly use fire to push your car. You could use you can just charge a battery with electricity.
I'm starting to think the more you're saying that, the more I'm like, wait a second. Maybe climate change won't be accelerated, because if we displace all the inefficiencies with like how efficient firebending is, because like it's literally somebody producing fire from nothing. Like from themselves, you know, like
no
the energy
coals,
within.
pretty much.
Yeah, and also lightning bending, which is clean energy right there. So,
and they would probably get to steam powered like boats and stuff much quicker.
That's true.
So so that would be more energy efficient. Maybe they would have like steam powered cars or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure steam is the most efficient thing. I'm pretty sure electric is the most efficient.
Yes, but like as like they progress, it would be like steam and then electric.
Yeah. So they probably progress faster, like polluting the earth less.
I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. I mean, that's the most optimistical way I would like to think of it. But I just, again, my big thing is just I feel like before we would realize that that's a problem, it'll be too late. That's just my thing. Like, I don't think we would develop the intelligence until we figure it out.
Because science has to also progress in order to, you know, notice that we're messing up the environment.
Yeah.
That's my thing about that.
Yeah, but the thing about humans in terms of, it's true in terms of science, it did progress kind of slowly in terms of like physics and biology and chemistry and whatnot. But when it comes to like empirical knowledge of what happens if something is like burned, or if something is like basically like Benjamin Franklin science, where he notices things versus actually knowing the theory behind it, right? When he invented the lightning rod, he just knew that lightning was attracted to metal by observing it.
Right.
So there's a lot of that type of science that could have advanced faster, because with the ability to firebend, you just notice a lot more things because those occurrences happen more often.
Yeah.
And it's a possibility, I'll say that.
If I were a scientist back then, I would probably look into the reason why we could firebend and like how we could like improve our skills or turn firebending into something else, or just like do some shit where you add something to your body and your firebending power increases exponentially.
Steroids, firebending steroids.
I think that's what, at least in terms of like me, if I were to be a scientist in the past, I think I'd look into why we could firebend, what is firebending, and then because you have to understand the basics before you could go into, you know, the advance, right?
For sure.